Hello, welcome to another episode of Wellness Wednesday. I'm your host, Emily Pasco, and today I'm delighted to be coming to you from our non-traditional program South in Cheltenham. And I'm even more thrilled to be joined by three wonderful professionals who today will be speaking on the important topic of restorative approaches. Thank you for joining us. First of all, we have our supervisor of the non-traditional program South, Mr. Wendell Coleman.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. We have our Restorative Approaches coordinator for non-traditional programs South, in addition to the transition coordinator in general, Miss Lisa Gilliam.
Hello, everybody.
And we also have Dr. Robin McNair, who is the Restorative Approaches coordinator for Prince George's County Schools. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise today.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so to get started, Mr. Coleman, I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about the non-traditional program in general. What is it that the program aims to do, and how does it support students in that non-traditional way?
Absolutely. So the name non-traditional is just so important to our work because our program is supposed to be different from a regular student's experience in school. Many times the students that have come to us haven't been successful in their traditional programs. And so our role, our goal, our mission is to make sure that we tailor our program to their individual needs. So whether that could be a smaller classroom, maybe it's a varying schedule, it's tapping into those special gifts that they have that they just might not have discovered at their traditional school.
So I'm hearing that here at Non-Traditional Program South, you are able to provide more of an individualized experience for the student that needs that more specific support and instruction, whatever that looks like.
Absolutely. We are very fortunate to be able to have several different support programs. So we actually have a college and career ready portion of our program that taps into the students' goals. One of our missions is for each one of our students when they finish our program to have a clear path to what they want to do in the future. We also are blessed to have our wellness program where we have therapists here who meet with our students regularly, and the students actually welcome that support. Many of our students go to see their counselors or therapists on a regular basis, and so that's another one of our wonderful supports we have here at our program. Also, of course, we have our In Good Standing program, which taps into rewarding our students for the great things that they do in school. Many of our students, unfortunately, haven't been recognized in their traditional settings. No fault to the traditional settings, but because we're able to tap into those relationships, which are so important to us here, we want to reward them for the great things that they do. So we're able to take them out of the building on field trips. We're able to do special things as far as recognitions. And a lot of our students just haven't had that part of experience in their school lives.
And I can imagine if you haven't experienced that kind of recognition and experience before, how valuable that must be to them when they come to this program.
Absolutely. It's success breeds more success. Mm-hmm. So just to see them smile, to see them know that they are being recognized for their positive gifts is just an amazing feeling. And so as they experience this school success, which might have eluded them in the past, then they buy in even more to what we're asking them to do.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure, I don't know if our viewers noticed, but we are wearing these bracelets. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure, absolutely. So this is our bands that we give each of our students and their families. So as a process of joining our school, they all go through a intake meeting. Mm-hmm. And at that meeting, a lot of times it's very emotional. There's just a lot of anxiety sometimes, and we try to put them at ease to let them know that this is a family environment. And so the motto of the school is every student matters, every moment counts. And each of the persons, when they come, parents, students, grandparents, whoever's with them, they all get a band. And so it's just a symbol that we can always refer to let them know how important they are to us every single day.
It's powerful. It seems, it's a bracelet, but it sends a very powerful message to your school community.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you for my bracelet, too.
Yeah,
now I'm part of your team.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. I was also wanted to ask Dr. McNair, could you provide an overview of restorative approaches and what's the philosophy behind that, and how are we using that to support our students in PGCPS and also at NTP South?
Okay, absolutely, Emily. So the idea behind restorative approaches comes from the philosophy of restorative justice. And what that means is we focus on relationships and community. As you heard Mr. Coleman speak, it's a family here. right? And when you are in relationship with one another in a positive way, then you'll be able to address any type of conflict or harm that comes up. And people want to take accountability for how they impacted someone as a result of that harm they may have done. And they want to make it right. You know, when you have those relationships, when you have those close communities and you know you belong, you want to make sure that you are not harming anyone in that community. But we know that conflict is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do when we have conflict? Well, if I trust you and I know that I'm a piece of this community, I want to ensure that this community stays intact. So I'm more likely to be held accountable, to hold myself accountable. And with that comes, you know, a sense of belonging, a sense of affirmation, and knowing that I am important and I'm a part of this community. Basically, harm is a violation of community, right? And that's the belief of restorative justice. And when you bring it into the schools and restorative approaches, it just lets you know, okay, what I've done has violated the community. How can I make it right?
And so I'm hearing in order to do that, like at the core, restorative approaches and restorative justice, it relies on that sense of community. And it starts there with, number one, the community in general, and number two, how each individual feels within that community.
Absolutely. It starts with that relationship first, yes.
And then it comes back to, you know, the correction or the restoring of the harm when those inevitable instances that you mentioned do come up. Falling back on that sense of community.
Absolutely. Emily, and I'm glad that you shifted that word from correction to restoring, because it's really about restoring what has been broken by this particular conflict or harm that has happened.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
I caught myself on that one. And speaking of, we know restorative approaches and restorative mindset, it is a little bit of a shift for many of us in education. I was wondering, Mr. Coleman or Ms. Gilliam, if you could talk a little bit about kind of that mindset shift that you've seen either for yourself or for your staff and how you're helping to kind of facilitate that amongst the community.
Absolutely. Do you want me to start?
You can. Sure.
So one of the first things we did when I came to the school last year was we focused on mindset in general and just focused on that growth mindset. And so as we moved into the restorative approaches, it was just a perfect segue into that next piece. So knowing that no matter where people are at the beginning, they can always change. And so if we're willing to work at it, if we're willing to keep an open mind, that everyone can change. And so no one is fixed. So to have that fixed mindset. And so as we moved into the restorative approaches led by Dr. McNair and Ms. Gilliam, it was just a perfect segue for our staff who have shown tremendous buy-in with the work, because again, no one person can do the work. And so I want Ms. Gilliam to speak about some of the things that she's done with our staff to kind of bring everyone on board in this effort.
So as everyone spoke about, it really is community. So it starts with me, making sure that I'm building relationships with every staff person. So it doesn't matter if it's building service or if it's the student. It could be a parent. It's all the stakeholders here. And so it's really important to us that everyone feels, you know, that sense of community. And I think this just coming from education and then kind of transferring, then I wanted to be a mental health counselor, then kind of back into education. A lot of educators are, you know, a lot of schools have in-school suspension and it's all punitive. And so we want you to be included and not excluded. And not that, you know, everything has its purpose. I'll put it that way. But I think that it's really important to understand that, you know, we all make mistakes. We all, you know, will have conflict, and that if we have community and we want to rebuild, almost like what Dr. McNair was talking about earlier, you know, then if you know you have this opportunity to be able to share, like, or right the wrong that's been done, it actually does transition you. And then it lets you know that, okay, I made a mistake. I'm not done. I'm not over. I still have purpose. I still can, you know, fulfill the goals that I had. I just made a mistake. And I think that, you know, is our overall thing here at NTP South, because a lot of people have come because they've been, you know, expelled or suspended, or they were, you know, maybe in placement prior to coming or whatever. And so we love each and every one of them the same. The tenets of dignity, mutual concern, and respect are really important to us, and that carries over because of what restorative justice stands for and then what we try to do here. But it is always about building community and relationships first. And then if we have relationships, it's so much easier to repair the wrong or the harm that might have been done, you know, through whatever process. And so I have seen, it's been 4.5 years, I think I've been doing like this type of work here. But it's so transformative. It really is amazing to see the shift and the change that's taking place.
Yeah, and you mentioned staff buy-in, and I know you've talked about already a couple strategies you've utilized for that, building relationships and really showing the positive impact that restorative approaches and restorative justice can have. Are there any other ways that you all have needed to use to generate staff buy-in, or is this something that you feel our teachers are hungry for, learning more about, learning a different way, kind of talking a little bit more about that?
I think I think it's both. I
Yeah.
mean, one thing, Dr. McNair is amazing. So she comes in and actually does circles with our staff, and has been in the ones even, with some of our students or scholars. And so once you're a part of that process and you start to see how people bond, just the very essence of being in the circle helps to build community initially. And then we have professional development trainings where the teachers come in. Mr. Coleman, allows the teachers to come, or he, gently nudges them to come to the professional development, and they do. And so a lot of times, one of the transitions that I've seen initially, it wasn't a lot of buy-in. But when the head, is doing the work, then it does trickle down. And
Right.
so I'm very thankful to Mr. Coleman because he has brought in himself and he sees the value of it, and he utilizes, circles and restorative conversations as well. And so you can definitely see the change and the shift. And so when more people do it, it's not just scholar to scholar. There have been staff members that have had an issue with a scholar, and they're like, Ms. Gilliam, I need to have a circle or a restorative conversation. Parents, have done it. It really has not been one person that has been a part of either that I've heard say, "Oh, we shouldn't have done that. This wasn't," because everybody has it's an even playing field. It's equity all the way. Everybody has the opportunity to say what they want to say, listen to other people, or if you don't, you can pass. But eventually, you want to be able to share. And so I think that that's part of the buy-in process, and more people. And then the trainings, really, really important, because you can't just go out there and just do the circle. There's steps and procedures to this. And so I think all of that helps.
Thank you.
We're actually reading a book together as a school family. And so at some of our faculty meetings, we get together and discuss the book and around those restorative approaches. And to see the buy-in, again, people are reading the book, they're reading the chapters, they're participating in the conversations. And these are things that people are doing because I think they want to get better at it. They see the value in it. It's important that we as leaders in the building, we model what we're expecting everyone else to do. And so when they see us modeling these things, I think it also helps to build buy-in. And just to piggyback on what Ms. Gilliam said, I've been able to sit in. I've been fortunate enough. Ms. Gilliam's just tremendous with this circle process. And I've been able to sit in with families who have never been through this process before. And every single time, it has been powerful.
There's our bell, being at a school here. But,
Yes.
thank you. I heard you both mention circles, so I want to back up a little bit. Dr. McNair, I was wondering if you could walk us through a little bit about what a circle is, some of the tenets of a good restorative circle, some of the requirements and the understandings of the circle, if you will.
Okay, I sure will. So the circle, that's my jam. That's my jam. So basically, you come together in a circle, and you let them know that in this space, we're all on the same level. So if I'm the facilitator or the circle keeper, I don't stand up. I don't have a special chair. I'm in the same space as everyone else. Because at this point, we're a community. And then it's about equity. So there you have your equality there. But then it's about equity. So we regulate the dialogue by using a significant talking piece. And this talking piece can be something that's significant to someone in the circle themselves, or it can be something that is a representation of the topic that we're talking about. And whoever has the talking piece is the person that, will speak. And they can choose to speak as much as they need to say, or they can choose to answer with one or two words, or they can choose to pass, right? And it always passes to the left. And that ensures that every single person has the opportunity to say or not say what they feel that they need to do when they get the talking piece. And we have, we open up We talk about what the topic is. We check in. And then after it's over, we check out to ensure that if there's a need that has not been met, the circle keeper can address it once we close the circle up. But you want to ensure that everyone knows that they belong in that space. And without people even knowing, they become very connected with one another. I have done trainings where, people are like, okay, let me get everybody's number so we can, keep in touch. Because from that first day, it's a bond is created. It's undescribable, but people feel like, I heard your story. And because I heard your story, I know you. I know you. And then you're less likely to want to harm someone intentionally.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of conflicts come up because people feel unheard. So having that circle and providing that opportunity for everyone to feel heard, that in and of itself is probably very powerful for our students, I can imagine.
And if I could just say this, Emily, so with the creation of the relationships and building that community, that's a community building circle. Right? When we're talking about sitting in circle to repair a harm, that's an actual restorative circle.
Okay.
And you must have the community building first
before
that restorative circle can be as powerful as you've heard Mr. Coleman and Ms. Gilliam talk about here. So we start off with those building community circles.
Great. Thank you so much. And we will get the opportunity now to hear from some of our students and staff here at NTP South to hear more about what circles look like in action and those restorative conversations. So thank you all so much for your input and for that overview of restorative practices in your program.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
can I just say
you.
one last thing?
Absolutely.
So about the power of the circles is that from the circles that we've had, there hasn't been another issue with the people who have been in the circle.
Wow.
And so it takes a little time because a lot of times we want things to happen quickly, but this process takes a little time. And that was challenging for me at the beginning to just kind of understand that process. But the process is so important that when it's followed with fidelity, we haven't had one situation where they've gone back and had another issue. And I think that speaks highly of the process.
That is.
Yes, I love that.
And I think that it's a powerful tool, a powerful precedent to set, to have these circles to build community and when conflicts happen. I also wanted to ask Dr. McNair, for families, do you have any recommendations for having restorative practices, restorative conversations with their youth at home? Because we know inevitably conflict comes up in families too, and families might not be equipped to circle up and do all that and have all that training. But are there any key tips that you could share for our families listening to maybe incorporate some of these practices?
Yes, absolutely. So it first starts with empathetic listening. One of the things I really admire about Mr. Coleman is that he listened and he was very open to what restorative practices and restorative approaches is. So if parents take the time to just listen to their child, not speak over them, not listen to respond, but to really hear what their child is saying, right? That's the first step. And then have those conversations around, well, tell me what happened. Well, how are you feeling? And then guess what? If the parent has done something that has caused the child to maybe feel a way, have the courage to say, I apologize. That was not my intention. And then share the intention with the child so the child can hear your point of view. But it starts with the parent understanding the child's point of view first.
Yeah.
So that empathetic listening and asking those questions and staying away from the question why. Because sometimes we don't know why we do it.
Yeah.
But we can ask questions like, what happened? What were you feeling? So what can we do to make it right?
Yeah.
So very simple.
Thank you. And I know, that can be hard for many parents, myself included.
Yes. Yes.
But I think it's always a good reminder. And why I also feel those why questions kind of put some walls up. Whereas, tell me what happened, an opportunity for our kids to share their perspective and what they experienced can bring those walls down and open up a more restorative conversation. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do want to say in Prince George's County, we do have organizations that will support parents with learning how to circle up with their youth as well.
Great. Thank you. And we will link some of those in the caption of this video as well for some additional resources.
Yes.
Thank you all again so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Okay, now we have two new guests with us here today, Mr. Alston and Leilani. Thank you both so much for being here. Mr. Alston, could you just tell us a little bit about your role here at NTP South?
My role here, I am the physical education and health teacher here at NTP South.
Thank you. And Leilani, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? What grade? What are you interested in?
Hi, my name is Leilani, and I'm a student at NTP South, and I'm in the 12th grade, and I used to attend Suitland High School.
Okay. So you're in the 12th grade, so you're graduating this year.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
And what kinds of things do you like to do? What are you interested in?
I like drawing, I like listening to music, and I like talking to my friends out of school.
Great, thank you. The reason, we want students to be part of this. We want to hear what it is like from your perspective at NTP South and having these kinds of restorative conversations and restorative circles. So can you tell us a little bit about what your experience here on those things has been like?
I like the meetings because we all come to an understanding, and we get on the same page and don't ever have to let it again. Basically,
Say the end part one more time.
we
You get on the same page, you get an understanding, and then I think I heard it doesn't happen again.
It doesn't happen again. We get back to square one, being friends.
Got it. So it's really resolution and restorative in nature. Is there anything in particular that kind of allows that kind of resolution to happen? So do you see something in the circles or the way that the adult might facilitate a restorative conversation? Like, how is it different than your experience in other types of conflicts?
It's different because we got the questions and we all listen to each other. It's like we open ears.
So there's already that building, that trust built and that understanding that everybody's going to be heard and given an opportunity to share their piece.
Yes.
Great. And Mr. Alston, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about, the teacher or the adult perspective of what kind of the shift to more of a restorative mindset and practice has been like for you.
For me, it's been pretty beneficial with the relationships that I've built with the students here. I noticed that some of them, we're all human, so we all have good days, bad days. The restorative circles allows the students' voice to be heard. I know sometimes they feel like we don't listen to them, we don't care about them. They genuinely know I care about them, and when I did a restorative circle with one of my students, A, I didn't have the issue anymore. B, it made our relationship a lot stronger. She was able to come to me and talk to me when she wasn't feeling like her best self or having the best day, and we were able to put things into place to prevent any further issues. So that's been my experience with the restorative circles.
Yeah, and I think, as adults, sometimes we come with our own idea of how problems should be solved, whereas students have a different perspective, or not even students, different individuals in any kind of conflict have a different idea. So I think that opportunity to be heard and to build that community and that trust, it's nice to hear that you've seen the benefit of that. And I heard in particular your relationship with your students has strengthened from community circles and restorative practices. Is there a particular incident that you could maybe detail without sharing names or anything like that led to a restorative circle or conversation?
I had one student who acted out of character. I've never had this issue with her before. I think we both were having like rough days, so the nail both definitely came to a head, and we both blew up at each other. After I sat down and removed myself from the environment, I was able to talk to myself and say, I want to try having a restorative circle with her because I have a great relationship with her. And I don't want her to feel like they say I crashed out on her. So I wanted her to understand that I'm human too. They think we're teachers, we're robots. We're programmed to be able to take all the nonsense they give us. No, I'm human. So at the end of the day, I wanted to have a restorative circle with her so she could understand the part that she played in it. And I wanted to know genuinely from her side, what do she think she could have done differently? Because sometimes they don't know. Right. They don't know unless they ask. And a lot of times they are scared to ask. So when I did that circle with her, I realized that sometimes I might play a little too much as a teacher. Like I joke with my students. I have a very youthful spirit. And she was like, some days I'm not feeling it. And I was like, well, I don't know that if you don't say that, right? So because of that circle, like I said, she was able to come to me moving forward, and she was like, hey, today, Mr. Austin, I'm not having the best day. If you could just give me the work, I'm going to sit in the corner and do it on my own. And that works for her, that works for me. So yeah, that's been my experience with one of the circles that I was participated in.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for acknowledging your role in that. I know it's not easy to admit fault ever, but we are all, like you said, human, and when emotions run high like that, it unfortunately has the potential to really damage a relationship. So I definitely applaud you for requesting that circle and making that effort to restore things and to allow the student to share about her experience and come up with some solutions moving forward in a way to not have that same problem again. So thank you. I think it's really helpful to hear, real life scenarios. Ms. Gilliam, as the kind of coordinator, is there anything that you wanted to add onto either of the experiences?
Absolutely. I think, first with Mr. Austin's, one of the things that I love, sometimes in circles, we will actually use the restorative questions. Sometimes it's additional questions as well. But the last one is like, what do you need to do to make things right? And so I think it's awesome when someone can say, you know what, it wasn't just a student. We go into a lot of everybody deals with conflict, like I said earlier, but we go into situations always pointing the finger. Most of the time, it's them. They did this. It's da-da-da. And not necessarily looking at ourselves in the mirror. And so I think the most important part of either restorative conversation and or a circle, whether it's community building or especially restorative circles, is that you have the opportunity to really listen, like Leilani was talking about earlier, to what the other person's perspective was. You may not have been thinking about the same thing, or you all might not be on the same page. One of our conversations that we had recently, both students, I asked them to explain because I still consider myself to be young, but my scholars probably don't think that I am. So some of the slang that they use is beyond me, and so I have to get information on what they're saying. So I was like, can you explain that? What does this actually mean to you? What does it mean to you? So that both of them could hear the understanding, because it's the same word, but both of them were saying something slightly different. And if I think that you're saying one thing to me, but it's really something different, and I internalize that, that's going to continue to allow the conflict to escalate. And so we want to reduce that so that we can get back to a place of peace here at NTP South. And so I think that in both, whether it was conversations or circles, I've seen that happen because they had to take the time. When you have we talked earlier, or Dr. McNair talked earlier about the centerpiece and the talking piece. And if only one person is speaking at the time, you can't do anything else but look at the centerpiece and put your gaze there until it's your opportunity to speak. So it causes not just that, but it teaches social emotional learning, because you have to be respectful of the person that's saying whatever they're saying. You're being mindful. You have to wait your turn. So you can't just say whatever you want to or blurt it out when you want to. It allows you to pause and really take that time. But usually when people in an argument, it's back and forth, and you're not really listening to what's being said. You're just responding or getting your thought or your point across. And so sometimes they have to be reminded. It could be challenging sometimes when you're doing it, but the outcome is far worth it. So when I hear people that I've had the opportunity to sit there with and see where it started and where it ended, it's just it's amazing. It's like sunshine on a cloudy day.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything that Leilani, that you wanted to add?
No, I all agreed, especially people having their good days and bad days, especially their bad days, because early in the morning, a lot of people not a morning person.
That would be me, yes. And really, understanding that that you have your own bad days too, not great days or different factors, whether you hit a bunch of traffic in the way in the morning, or maybe you're just not feeling so hot physically. Those all play a part in how we interact with others and really allowing that grace that everybody's human and that opportunity to restore things when conflict arises. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's an important reminder.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you all. Okay, now we're joined by a new scholar, Jemiah. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hi.
And we also have Mr. Anderson, the teacher here at Non-Traditional Program South. Mr. Anderson, could you tell us what your role is here at NTP South?
Okay, yes. So my name is Mr. Anderson. Some of the students call me Big A, big on relationship, and we form some big relationships here. I'm a science teacher. I'm also on the Restorative Approaches team.
Okay, thank you so much. And Jemiah, tell us a little bit about yourself. What grade are you in? What kinds of things do you like to do for fun? All those kinds of things.
My name is Jemiah. I'm in 11th grade, and I like to, hang out with my friends, do activities like any other teenager my age.
How long have you been a student here at NTP South?
Since last year.
Okay. Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit about your experience so far, particularly with restorative conversations or restorative circles? How has kind of the change been for you?
It's been working. I feel like it helped me how to approach certain situations and how I need to start respecting others and how others need to start respecting me. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned respect, both ways, right? Like you need to respect others, but also having that standard for others to respect you as well. I was also wondering, could you take us through, we've been talking about restorative conversations and restorative circles and community building. Would you be able to take us through a real life situation that you've experienced, maybe a conflict with someone else, what started that and how it was resolved through the team here at NTP South and you as well?
Okay, I got into a situation with a female about some accident, and she was pretty mad. She wanted some, she wanted me to exchange some money for an accident that I broke. And, it got out of hand and we got into an altercation about it. And so we had to do a restorative conversation with our parents and Miss Gilliam. And I feel like it went pretty well, It took a long time to get to a solution. But, after that, we didn't have no more issues. We stayed out each other's way. We are cordial to each other. There's no issues, in my opinion.
Thank you so much. So it sounds like in this particular situation, was a true accident and kind of that misunderstanding of how to mediate that accident, I guess, how to solve that problem. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that a resolution was come and you're on good terms relatively with the other student. And I heard you say it took a little while. Ms. Gilliam, could you share a little bit about your role in that circle or conversation and kind of that process as a facilitator?
Sure. So one of the things, I don't know if I said it earlier, but it's a process that we have here. So we have a request form. So any student, scholar, even if it's a parent, they'll let us know they don't have access to the actual form. They complete it. They let us know which type of circle or conversation they may need. And then once I read that, that's when it's assigned. A lot of times, because my job is not classroom-based, I'm non-classroom based, I'm the person who leads them a lot. But if other people have the availability, then I'll assign, the situation, or whether it's conversation or circle, to them. We had it. This one was the one that was 7:00 at night, and so I'm thankful. I love the work, so I would do it regardless. But I also care, the relationship that I have with Mr. Coleman as principal and employee, whatever, or coordinating supervisor, and teacher, a non-classroom teacher. I will, do whatever I need to do to make sure that we have peace. We're on the same place or with that. And so for this one, I think Jemiah, when she was speaking about it, took long. It was longer than usual for this particular circle. I think we might not have got out to, it was close to 9 o'clock that night, because we want to give everybody the opportunity. You remember we said they're round. So every time they go around, answer their question, we want to make sure that everybody understands. We want to make sure that we leave with this resolution. And so that particular one was one where that happened to take place. And so it's not a quick fix. I think Mr. Coleman spoke to that earlier. And I think that, we live in a microwave society. You know what I mean? That's what we've heard all the time. And I think that, again, the biggest transition for a lot of people is they want to be resolved right now.
Yeah.
You did this, it's supposed to be done. And that's not what it takes. But the longevity that it happens after you really do the process, the fidelity, and what Jemiah spoke about is true. I haven't seen them have any words or whatever. And then the scholars know that they can always come to the staff members. They can always come and talk to me. Jemiah and I have had several conversations. So we have that relationship, that we spoke about before. So hopefully when we get to those circles, they know that they're in a safe place. And so it's, again, such a blessing to hear the positive outcomes that take place. And we encourage them. We understand that everybody's not going to be a friend, to you afterwards. But we want you to be cordial. This is a place of peace. And so because we're a part of this and we're a community, that means we all have to do our part to do that. And they did just that.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And it sounds like, it can be, a time-consuming process up front, but the payoff is that, a shared understanding and a lack of future problems.
Absolutely.
So that definitely is worth it.
Yes, and a lesson learned too. They learn something as well, and they're usually able to share that with their scholars. Like we encourage them not to necessarily talk about, like, it's almost like what happened here stays here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We don't want you to share in that sense, but the general sense of, if you're having an issue, you can go ahead and request a restorative conversation or request a restorative circle, so that you can kind of, quote unquote, squash whatever issue you might have, like they say. So, and I think that sometimes that does actually happen. There are plenty of scholars who will actually say, you know what, I do want to have a conversation about it. I don't want this to escalate to something different. So
that's great that many of them feel comfortable in advocating for that kind of a conversation and that kind of a circle. It speaks to the environment that you all have created here at NTP South. Mr. Anderson, I was wondering if you could speak to some of the circles or conversations that you've been a part of. I understand you do some community building within your classrooms. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
Yes. Before I do that, I'd like to piggyback off of the situation that Jemiah brought up, because I teach both Jemiah and the other scholar in my class. And so prior to the circle, it was kind of, contentious. And just as a testament of the circle, they could come in class, do the work, no issues at all. So it's very powerful, very impactful. I'll speak to the last circle that I was a part of, and I may get emotional talking about it, but it's just something about seeing individuals be that vulnerable with one another, and coming from a community, coming from demographics where being vulnerable is not our first mode of action. It does take time to get there, but once you do get there, you do see that breakthrough. The last circle I was part of, involved 2 scholars and their parents, and the biggest thing was just seeing the parents get engaged and involved in the circle. The parents getting emotionally vulnerable and pretty much crying out to their kids and saying, "Hey, I need you to get your act together. Hey, I need you to recognize that this school here and the time and care that's being given is important to you." And so it can be emotionally draining, but the reward from such circles is just so great. Again, we deal with scholars who aren't used to opening up. They're not used to, as I said, being vulnerable. They're not used to expressing themselves. They're not used to long, drawn-out processes and seeing other people's opinion. They grow up in environments where punishment and interaction is very punitive. But when we look at the word restorative. Who doesn't want to be restored? Who doesn't want to have whatever the relationship is restored? There's instances where, yeah, all you simply need is to have a conversation. The history would say, oh no, I gotta defend mine, I gotta square up, I gotta get active, or whatever they're saying nowadays. But no, we can just talk about it. And so I'm very appreciative of the fact that I can be part of a team, part of a school where we're introducing this to a younger generation. I wish that restorative approaches could start on the elementary school level, so that they can grow up knowing that this is how we resolve things in PG County. We talk about being a community, so yes, we are the NTPS community, but that community is made up from scholars from Drew Freeman, from Kettering Middle School, from Wise, from Suitland. The whole community needs to be restorative. So I'm just very appreciative of being a part of, this overall process.
Yeah, thank you so much. And the work you all are doing here is incredibly powerful. And I also like how you mentioned that vulnerability, that these kinds of conversations are hard. When conflict comes out, a lot of times it can come out as anger and look like anger, but beneath that is often, almost always, real pain. And saying, I'm hurt by something is different than lashing out. It's harder in many ways. So I know that that's a shift for many of our adults in the building and in PGCPS, as well as our scholars in just the culture and community and our traditional ways of thinking. So thank you for touching on that. I think that's incredibly powerful for others to hear, and the fact that you've been able to cultivate an environment that makes others feel safe, sharing that vulnerability and having those conversations to be restored. So thank you. Anything you wanted to add, Jemiah?
No, not too much.
Do you feel like Mr. Anderson and Ms. Gilliam kind of accurately, you think most students in the school would agree?
Majority of them.
Yeah, good. Well, that's great to hear, and thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Ms. Gilliam, for all the incredible work that you've done in bringing restorative practices to NTP South, Mr. Anderson, as well as Mr. Coleman and Dr. McNair for being on earlier. And thank you for joining us. We will look forward to our next Wellness Wednesday podcast, and we will have links to some different resources below, and also anybody who wants to check out our other podcasts, they can be found on our mental health website on the PGCPS page. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.